So I hope everyone's doing great out there. Where I live in the Northeast, there's been this respiratory thing going around, kind of nasty. Actually briefly landed me in the hospital last week. I'm doing much better. It was a real nice hospital, nice facility near me. Not nearly as many hostages as I expected, though, and the underground tunnel facility was really underdeveloped, so kind of pathetic. I want to say, before I say anything else, honored to be here with Roy, who's been is in the trenches on this issue every day. And my hat's off to Steve on another really important study. I rely on the center all the time. I cite it a lot. I rely on it even more than that. I don't think there's really a week that goes by where I'm not calling Steve, Mark, or Arthur. And sometimes I think I'm wearing out my welcome when Mark won't even say hello when he picks up the phone. He's just, yes, Rich. Now what, Rich? But anyway, I want to underline an issue that both Mark and Steve have hit on. Where's the debate? Where's the debate on this issue? 15% is a landmark number. It's a historic number. It's a number worthy of being discussed and litigated in the public sphere, and it's just not. This is an issue that impacts wages, it impacts schooling, it impacts welfare, it impacts politics, it impacts our broader culture. Among other things, national characteristics tend to be enduring, not immutable, but they tend to be enduring. Bob Newhart used to say that being 3/4 Irish and 1/4 German made him a very meticulous drunk. So these qualities, they don't go away easily. And this historic wave of immigration just affects our national life in ways large and small, good, bad, and indifferent. Just a little example. I lived in New York for decades, and when I first went there in the 1990s, pretty much every cab driver in New York was an African American. That's no longer the case. That industry is now dominated by Pakistani and West Indian ethnic networks. You still occasionally come across kind of an old school African American cab driver. I ran across one of these guys, real salt of the earth, a couple years ago, and he was haranguing me in the cab with all his views that were, some of them were substantially to my right. And at the end of this, he's like, and that's what I think. And he fixed me with a suspicious gaze in the rearview mirror, and he said, because I don't know where you're from, but I'm an American. And just to the issue of Steve hit on briefly of cost. I mean, you just look at the current wave of illegal immigration now in cities like Chicago and New York. New York, we're an amnesty jurisdiction. We welcome everyone from everywhere. And then sure enough, tens of thousands of these migrants show up, and they're unskilled. They don't have family connections the way other immigrants might. But still, you have the mayor of New York City, 8 million people, saying our city is now fiscally ruined by tens of thousands of these migrants showing up. So it just goes to how consequential this issue is. It is as consequential or more consequential as trade, as Ukraine funding, as infrastructure, as the climate, as the deficit, all these issues that are routine matters of congressional debate and talked about on the Sunday shows all the time. But this one is missing. And the question is why. And I put a lot of the onus on conservatives and on Republican politicians. And it reminds me a lot of the way the trans debate used to be several years ago. When this would come up, there'd be legislation somewhere. We're going to stop these so-called medical transitions. We're going to stop biological males competing in women's sports. And you'd have, Republicans in good standing, Asa Hutchinson in Arkansas or Kristi Noem out there in Dakota saying, nah, we're not going to do that. We're just going to rely on the experts and the professional advice, which is a way of saying, don't hurt us. Leave us alone. We're not mean people. We're not transphobic. It goes to what my longtime colleague Rick Brookhiser says about Republicans, that in their heart, Republicans think they're wrong, which they do on a lot of issues. And they did on that. They just didn't want to talk about it because it seemed nasty. Now, what happened is you had conservative influencers, writers, advocates pushing on the trans issue, making that kind of evasion unsustainable. And now, lo and behold, last couple of years, we had a real debate, a debate that the right is in large measure winning. Maybe it's overly optimistic, but I think it's not crazy to believe that we reached peak trans. Now, there's nothing like that happening, except for here, fortunately, and some other precincts, on the debate over immigration numbers overall. And another reason we're not seeing the kind of debate we should is just the sheer irresponsibility and numbers coming over the border illegally. Now, illegal immigration is a hugely important issue. We all write and talk about it all the time. It's one of the issues I rely on the center's work for, but it's not the only immigration issue. But because it's so easy, it's what Republicans have gravitated to. The late, great Congressman Sonny Bono, Republican congressman, was asked once, what do you think of illegal immigration? He's like, well, it's illegal, right? Now, it turns out that was a naive point of view, but that's the easy thing to say. So this is just naturally where Republican advocacy goes. And I think one reason for the political power and potency of Donald Trump is he seems like a comprehensive restrictionist. He kind of plays like a comprehensive restrictionist, but he's not. He's really a super border hawk. He's overwhelmingly focused on stopping numbers from coming over the border. And then, throughout the 2016 campaign and at times during his presidency, he would say, we need more legal immigration, and right afterwards, one of his aides obviously said, no, that's not your position. It's like, no, it's not. No, it's not your position. But obviously he's not always very careful about policy or numbers. I have a friend who I knew an advance guy for Trump when he did a big rally in Virginia in 2016. And Trump was back in the green room in Roanoke or wherever it was and was curious about the number of people out there and asked this aide, how many people were out there? He's like, sir, I've never seen somebody, it's packed to the rafters, 3,000 people. Trump's like, 5,000 people? That's great. And then he gets on the phone, Jimmy, I got 10,000 people out there. So anyway, that's Trump. But even he is not focused on this number, on this overall number. And this is just hugely consequential for our society and the beginning of wisdom on it, the beginning of having a debate on it is telling the truth and informing people about what's happening in a responsible and careful way. And that's what Steve and his colleagues have done.